Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Woo Curious podcast. Your map to the mystical, your key to the sacred, and your guide back home to yourself. I'm Eileen, a writer, a spiritual coach, energy healer, and slow living witch. This podcast is your invitation to explore a world where the mundane and the sacred intertwine. It's a haven for those ready to take the first steps into the realms of magic and mystery, providing a safe space for you to embark on your own enchanted journey towards healing and self-discovery. Here, I'll unveil the whispers of the mystical, the rituals often hidden in plain sight, and I'll engage in sacred conversation intended to stir your soul and lead you back into your power. I'm all about demystifying woo and witchcraft. So, whether you're a seasoned seeker or simply woo curious, I'm so delighted you've decided to join me on this journey. Let's make magic. Hello, and welcome back, Woo Crew, to another episode of the Woo Curious podcast. I am your host, Eileen, and today's episode will be a solo episode. It is finally starting to feel like summer here in Calgary. We've had 2 days in a row of decently warm weather. Fingers crossed it's looking good for the rest of the week. Despite the slow start, I have actually been quite grateful for the rain because we've been in a several years drought here in Calgary, and we also had a water main break in the city. The main water main for the city broke and water restrictions were in place, and the rain really meant that the outdoor plants were able to survive. So I am grateful and really ready for this summer weather. And I'm sure you're feeling that summer energy as well. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit about the magic of play, because I think it's something that as adults, we often don't allow ourselves enough of. We don't consciously engage in as much as we probably should. And we don't make time for it. We don't prioritize it. So that's today's topic. But before I drop in, I'm actually recording this just a couple of days before it airs, which is somewhat unusual for me. And so I just want to acknowledge the big new moon energy in Cancer. It's a watery new moon. It's got lots of themes of internal tending. And so I think this is part of why I chose the topic of play as well, because it's really shining a light for me personally, and I know for a lot of the world, on how do we create a home for ourselves within ourselves? How do we care for ourselves and tend to our own needs, nourish our bodies, our minds, our souls? As you listen to this, the doors to one-on-one work with me inside Rekindled have closed for the time being. I'm not certain they will be opening again, at least not in the format that they have been. However, before I drop into the magic of play and why it's so important, I do just want to speak to the fact that I'm really feeling a lot and hearing a lot from my communities about the need for healing that people are encountering. There's this sense of being at the end of the rope, overwhelmed, really wanting to enjoy life again, but not even knowing where to start. And I was speaking about this a little bit in my Instagram stories today about how there has been a collective overwhelm and burnout from the pandemic that we have all lived through, and in many ways are still living with the fallout of. And obviously COVID still exists and impacts people daily. And women, in their kind of default role as the care providers for everyone, especially the emotional care providers, have been hit extra hard in this. And so I'm seeing a lot of my clients, a lot of my friends feeling like they are depleted and don't have capacity, and that their usual support people are feeling the same way. So with that in mind, I am offering for the summer months, since I am closing that kind of more intensive one-on-one door, I am offering remote healing with voice note support through the summer months. And I love this particular modality because it's not adding another thing to your day. The way that my remote healing works is that I drop into your energy on a day of your choosing. You pick the day of the week and I drop in. I encounter your energy body. I see what she needs. She'll show me, some insights. I usually get intuitive hits. Sometimes guides will show up, give me messages to pass on to you. And then I do the actual healing work as well, balancing those energy centers, helping support you, helping you shed. Sometimes we release attachments. Sometimes it's more of a pouring in and loving up, but it's a really beautiful form of support that is then delivered to you. The findings of it are delivered by voice note. I always pull some cards for support as well. And then there's the voice note between the two of us, the WhatsApp voice note support to answer any questions, to provide you really practical support day to day as well, and to help you create those little shifts and hold some accountability for you around those little shifts that really start to make the big difference in how you're feeling and how you're showing up in your world. If this sounds delicious to you, if this sounds like something that you are curious about that's calling you, please feel free to either reach out and say, I'm in, I want it. Either on Instagram, send me an email, Eileen@myluminouslife.ca, or you can book a curiosity call too, and we can just drop in and chat and see where you're at. And that link will be below in the show notes, and it will be 250 Canadian dollars for a month of support. And you can do multiple months, you can do just 1 month, and that includes 2 distance healings and that unlimited voice note support for the entirety of the month. So let me know if this is something that you'd like, and we'll take it from there. Okay, thank you for listening to that piece, and into play. So when I was thinking about what felt in alignment to offer, along with this, the kind of heavier, weightier piece of we are collectively burnt out and low capacity in a lot of ways, how might we harness or embrace the beautiful outward energies of summer to restore some of that capacity? Especially when we are feeling drained and overwhelmed, especially when we are potentially experiencing some financial instability too, with the way that the world is currently, and especially if you're a listener here in Canada, our cost of living, I know it's gone up worldwide. In Canada, it's been really drastic how much it's gone up. And so there's all these stressors that are impacting us. And I don't know about you, but I know that when I am stressed and when I'm feeling worried about money, or worried about other life situations, the last thing on my mind is setting aside time to play. It seems so frivolous. It seems like an indulgence, a nice to have, not a need to have. But the reality is that play has so many benefits for us. So play in mammals is ubiquitous. It is how young mammals learn the life skills necessary to navigate, to survive. And so it's something that we know is great for developing brains, little kiddo brains, for their creativity, for their resilience, for their problem-solving skills. And more recently, research has been done on play for adult brains. And it turns out that all those benefits that exist for kids also exist for adults, and they're not just nice to have. They really are benefits that we can all tap into and harness to lead a more fulfilling and lower stress, I don't want to say stress-free, life. And so much like so many other forms of self-care, taking the time creates time. Taking the time fills the tank, it fuels you. One of the things when I was doing a little bit of research to get my notes together for this episode, one of the things I, of course, came across was that play boosts productivity. And if you've been in my world for very long, you'll know that I don't love doing things that help us in order to boost productivity. And the reality is that we live in a 3D world where we do have some requirements of being quote unquote productive. We do need to tend to ourselves and our families. We need to feed ourselves. We need to work to bring in money so that we can house ourselves and all of those things. So the practical reality of the matter is that there does need to be some production, some productivity in our lives. And if you are, like many of us are, feeling as though your well is a little bit dry, like you're tapped out, then finding tools, finding things that we can do that can give us the energy and the spaciousness and a little bit of ease in order to continue to live life in a way that makes sense for us, then I am here for that. So play is a great way to do this because it is in so many ways energizing. And I want to read you a definition of play that is from Dr. Stuart Brown. He wrote a book about play. It's called Play: How It Shapes the Brain, Opens the Imagination, and Invigorates the Soul. And so he defines play as a state of mind that one has when absorbed in an activity that provides enjoyment and a suspension of sense of time. And so that last piece is important because what he's describing there is flow state. And many of you will be familiar with the term flow state. It was coined by I think he was a psychologist, Mikhail, goes by Mike, and I am not going to pronounce his last name because it's like a lot of letters long with Z's and Y's and C's and stuff in it. But you can Google flow state and he'll come up. But it's these states that we get into where we are engaged in a task and time disappears. And we can all recognize this state, right? We can all think of times or certain activities where this becomes the case, where you're like, how did 5 hours just disappear? For me, one of the ones that jumps to mind when I think about this is pottery, where I'm not thinking about anything else. I am fully present in the moment. It's challenging enough to engage my whole mind, but not so challenging that I'm becoming frustrated and out of the experience. And so play is one of those things where we can really tap into a flow state. And flow states are so good for our brains. They almost are a meditative state in a lot of ways, and they just give our bodies a break from the constant chatter that happens, especially that prefrontal cortex, constant planning, constant thinking, constant problem solving, and instead just drop us into the moment. And often we kind of lose awareness of even of our bodies, which it's not always a good thing, but it certainly is a valuable state to find. So play is one of those places where we can get into a flow state. And it's can be spontaneous. It doesn't always have to be, but it's expressive and creative, and it's fun and it's silly, and it's got so many benefits. So I'm going to tell you what a few of those benefits are. We know that just as in kids, play in adults actually increases creativity, which helps us in so many ways. You need spaciousness in your mind for creativity, but creativity helps you with problem solving. It helps you navigating relationships. It helps you in like actually creating things, which is pleasing for the human animal to create art. Or, it doesn't, when we say art, it doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be quote unquote good skilled art. Any kind of creation is art. And that's a big piece of being human. Play helps us to appreciate beauty more. They found in some studies it improves our sense of humor. It also increases the sense of approaching life with excitement. A sense of hope comes along with including play frequently. And it improves relationships, especially if we can be playful with our loved ones. It actually strengthens bonds between us. It increases that sense of connection, releasing oxytocin, and that improves relationships. And then all of these things obviously lead to this kind of overall well-being and life satisfaction when we make time for play. The flip side, or synonymous with all of this, is that it lowers stress levels. And when we lower our stress levels, we know that we're reducing cortisol in our bodies, which is helpful in so many ways. but things like lowered blood pressure and all of these other things that come along with improved sense of well-being. Reducing stress levels, we know, also has great long-term health impacts, especially with all of those autoimmune disorders that can crop up when we are constantly stressed. And obviously, a lot of play, not all of it, but a lot of play is also physically active. And so there is that ability to link play with something that quite literally improves your physical health as well. And so what counts as play? Well, from the definition that I read earlier, you can kind of start to think about the fact that, well, play doesn't have to look any certain way. It just needs to be an activity that's enjoyable, that's fun, and that has the potential to take you into that flow state. And so creating playfulness in and around things that you maybe already are doing or have to do is one good way of working it into your life. And so things like an exercise routine, can you make it playful? Figuring out, for you, do you like to win something? Can you make yourself a little challenge? And so you're playing in that way. Or do you like it to be really lighthearted and silly and goofy? It could be something that's not physical too. For you, play could be writing silly haikus or maybe not so silly haikus. Anything that is creating that sense of appreciation and levity in your life with people. And this is where imagination and magic can come in too. So I said the magic of play. I see magic woven into the fabric of the way that we exist in this world, in this place where we are beings interconnected with the planet we are on, with each other, with the stars from whose dust we are created or have come into being. So the ability to do something that is fun and silly and enjoyable and takes us out of our cares and have that directly positively impact the way we get to show up and shine in the world, that to me is magic. So I would love to hear from you. This is going to be a pretty short and sweet episode. I would love to hear from you. How do you feel about play? As I talk about this, do you kind of have a sense in your mind or your body of like, yeah, sure, that sounds great, but I don't have the time for that? Or I can understand the value and it's hard for my body to believe it. This is where tuning in to our bodies and beginning to decouple from some of those real hustle culture mentalities, the hyper independence, the good girl, the pleasing, all of these external expectations that we have piled on ourselves or that have been piled on us through life. This is where this work starts to become really important. And sometimes it is having somebody outside of you reflecting to you that it's not selfish. In fact, it's quite selfless to invest time into your joy and your play. Especially if you have kiddos, this is a perfect excuse to set down the laundry for now. I know it does need to get done eventually, but maybe it doesn't need to get done right now, and go and be goofy with them. And if you don't have kids, it's the perfect excuse to go skipping in the field or something that maybe you wouldn't otherwise do. Often too, when I think about being playful in life, I get a little self-conscious. Obviously, you don't have to go play out in public, but you can. And so maybe playing too with whimsy when it strikes you. If you have a sudden urge to skip down the street, why not skip down the street? See how it feels in your body. See what it loosens or lightens, and see how, if you see other people, how they might respond. I guarantee you're going to put a smile on someone's face and make their day, and maybe they're going to skip too. Okay, that feels like a really nice place to leave this, to leave you for the day. Once again, if you are feeling like you would like some extra support through the summer, and especially if you feel like carving out time to sit down face to face with somebody is maybe more than you have capacity for or space for, especially if you're traveling, any of that, these remote healings are designed to support you without you having to fit a whole bunch more into your calendar. So please reach out if you want more information about that. If you're ready to jump in, if you're curious, once again, the link is below to hop into a curiosity call with me. And I'll also drop the link down there to just sign up. So if you're ready to take the leap, you can do that too and bypass the entire need for a curiosity call. Thanks so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you who tunes in weekly. It makes my heart sing. And please know that your support means the world. If you haven't yet left a review, please do so. It helps so much to have this show discovered by others. If you like this episode, share it on your Instagram. Tag me at I am Eileen March or at the.woocurious.podcast. And if there's somebody that you think could use a little more play in their life, why not send this episode along to them directly? Okay, that's all for now, Woo Crew. Next week, I am back with special guest Ashley Tanzosh. She is the creator of Liminal Weaver. She creates Wheel of the Year candles and other witchy offerings. She's also a counselor, a somatic coach. So we had a really beautiful discussion all around the Wheel of the Year and the magic and permission that it gives us in our lives. So I hope you'll tune back in for that one. And as always, please reach out with any questions, comments, and anything else. I always love hearing from you. Bye for now.